Okay, hi, good afternoon everybody. Welcome to another episode of Math with the Thinker's Cap. Okay, my name is Mr. Tham. Okay, in today's lesson, okay, we're going to explore real life situation, okay, where we can use trigonometric functions, right, to model those situations, right? So example of such situations could be your low tide and high tide, or the Ferris wheel movement, right, where the movement of the tides or the movement of the Ferris wheel can be modeled using the sine curve, cosine curve, or my tangent curve. Alright, so let's take a look at some basic knowledge, right, which we are expected to know, right, before we can apply it to the real life situation, right? Okay, so for y equals to a sine bt, alright, my amplitude is a, which is the coefficient of my sine function, alright, and my period will be 2 pi divided by b, right, where b is the coefficient of t. Okay, and for cosine curve, same thing, alright, my period will be 2 pi over b, right, and my a will be the amplitude, where a is the coefficient of my cosine function. Okay, for tangent curve, it is slightly different, okay, as compared to my sine and cosine. Okay, where my period, right, is only pi over b, right, for my a equals to tangent bx. Alright, and in this case, my tangent, I do not have a maximum or minimum point because it will go to infinity or negative infinity. Okay, so with this background knowledge in mind, we can now apply it to our situation, okay, to find the unknown, okay, in this question. Right, so let's take a look at this question here, okay, where I have the depth of the water, d meters, okay, at the end of jetty, t hours after low tide. Okay, can be modeled by this equation, d equals to a plus b cosine kt, right? So in this case, we're going to draw a diagram to help us understand how the movement of the tide, okay, the height, okay, can be modeled using a graph, right? So I'm going to start with the low tide, which is what is given in the question, right? Okay, I'm going to start measuring from low tide. Okay, t hours after low tide, the tide will start to move. Alright, okay, the depth of water at the low tide is 2 meters. So I'm going to put this information down, 2 meters, and the high tide will be 6 meters. Alright, so you reach the tide of 6 meters over here. Alright, and the next time where the low tide occurs will be 12 hours later. Right, so from the high tide to the next low tide is another half a cycle. Right, so I've got 12 hours here. Okay, so that is one period from low tide to low tide, right? Minimum point to minimum point. Okay, so let's find out my unknowns a, b, k. Okay, starting with k first, right? So knowing that my period, okay, is 12 hours, right? So I can set 2 pi over k, right, where k is the coefficient of t in the cosine function, to be equals to 12, right, and my k therefore would be 2 pi over 12, which gives me pi over 6. Alright, so that's my first unknown, okay, k, which I have found. Okay, the next one to find would be my amplitude, which is the coefficient of cosine function, the b over here. Okay, so pay special attention to the shape of the curve. Alright, as compared to my normal cosine curve, okay, this curve here, which is also a cosine function, is actually inverted. Alright, so in this case, I will expect the coefficient, right, of my cosine function to be negative because it's an inverted cosine curve. Alright, so in this case, when I'm finding my amplitude, I've got to put a minus sign, okay, in front. Okay, so I'm going to take the gap, alright, of the high tide and the low tide, and divide it by 2, right, to find my amplitude. So my b will be equals to, okay, I'm going to put a minus sign here. Okay, the gap between the high tide and low tide is 6 minus 2 over 2. Alright, and that will give me minus 4 over 2, which gives me minus 2, right? So now I found my b. Okay, so the last unknown to find will be my a. So I'm going to rewrite the equation, okay, with the values of k and b, which we have just found. Alright, so my d will be equals to a minus 2 cosine k would be pi over 6, okay, times t. Alright, so given that my t equals to 0, my d is equals to 2. Alright, this is the initial time where I started measuring, okay, the height of the pipe, okay, at time 0. So I'm going to substitute this pair of values in. Okay, so my d is 2, a is what we wanted to find, minus 2, okay, cosine pi over 6t, okay, with t 0, this is going to be 0. Alright, okay, and this will give me 1. Cosine 0 is actually 1, right? So over here, 2 equals to a minus 2, which gives me a equals to 4. Alright, so in this case, we have found my unknowns a, b, and k. Alright, if you find that this lesson is helpful in helping you understand, okay, how to apply, okay, real-life modeling, okay, using trigonometric functions, okay, feel free to share it with your friends, and I'll see you during our next lesson. Thank you.